What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel today for another review. Cam and I are ready to jump into the review of the new film, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is coming to theaters April 19th. We've got a chance to check this one out early. We're here to give you our review, our thoughts, our reactions to the new Guy Ritchie film, alongside of his BFF Henry Cavill, who at this rate pretty much just owns Lionsgate, because not only do they have this film, they also got another film coming out called Into the Gray, which they hinted at a little bit at CinemaCon. And then beyond that, Henry Cavill is doing a Highlander also with Lionsgate. So these two besties are definitely in good graces with Lionsgate, and honestly have just been putting out good films. But listen, if you are a fan of Guy Ritchie, then you know exactly what you're getting with this one. Tons of action. The cinematography is always great, and the fact that he's able to always sprinkle some comedy in there. It gives you that, and it's very unique style with caption screens or title screens, and even sub narratives at times. This is a true and pure Guy Ritchie film. But yeah, beyond this film, like I said, Into the Gray, that's coming out next year. That's going to have Guy Ritchie and Jake Gyllenhaal, and Rosamund Pike too. So that should be a fantastic film. But yeah, focusing on this one, you can check it out in theaters the April 19th. So important though is this film is loosely based on true events. So for you history buffs that's going in there and trying to flip the pages on this one, don't expect for it to be too accurate, but nonetheless, with those loosely inspired events, it's still a lot of fun. Definitely need references to, especially in dealing with World War II, to particular, and the thing also, the kind of jumping around a little bit here, the things with World War II, there's so many unique stories in World War II, and this is one that I was not familiar with. But yeah, there's some components to this that the highest history buffs will be aware of. I mean, understanding Hitler and the Nazis and like the U-boats, which is just submarines that was at a point there was no answer to, and to kind of hear about how the Americans kind of interjected themselves into the war, and these group of almost misfits come together in order to do the unthinkable, is what the story is about. And before I give it to you, I think the easiest way to put this is that you have this ruthless group of men who really don't even care if they can return home, and they will not stop at anything until they get the job done. They are tasked to stop the German U-boats, because as I mentioned, at this rate, they're unstoppable, they're undetectable, they're able to take down any major vessel, and it's up for them to figure out a plan to get behind enemy lines and at some point stop them. So very simple plot, a lot of action, good laughs, good cinematography, true Guy Ritchie film. And on that note, I enjoyed it. Not a bad film at all. What about you, Cam? Get in there. Let us know if I missed anything about what this film is about, the things you liked, the things you didn't like, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you touched a lot on it, honestly. I think this was a film that kind of took me back to that original Medal of Honor game by DreamWorks that we used to play back in the 2000s. This was that, right? This is exactly what I thought of when I saw the different scenes in this film, going on these crazy unspeakable missions where you're, instead of just being a lonesome guy, you have these troops behind you that are trying to conquer this unreachable goal. And we get to see it in this film. And I think some of the standout acting, honestly, that I was surprised about, which I probably shouldn't be surprised about it because he's a great actor, but Alan Ritchson, right? Who we know from the what is the on Prime?
Reacher.
From the Reacher series, right?
Yeah.
He is ruthless. Probably one of the most ruthless people we see in this film, and it really shows. The guy is flexing the guns the whole entire film, and it's amazing. And then one of the villains that kind of stood out in this was Liz Westberg, right? Who we get to see in this film. And I just feel like Guy Ritchie is really killing it right now with these type of movies that are really diving into those undercover spy operative type films, and he's got the bread and butter right now that is just winning as a formula for a lot of people out there. Um, some of it, okay, I would say the one point that I didn't like in the film is some of the outrageous weaponry, right? Of course, I mean, it's a Guy Ritchie film, so of course we're going crazy, right? But the accuracy that we're seeing with a lot of these shooters in this film, I'm like, okay, all right, you obviously don't have a stormtrooper helmet on and you're killing it right now. But overall, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. This was definitely a film that you can sit back and go see and not really have to think about all these different components because it's not tied to anything we've seen before. And like you said, I am a history buff. So for me, this really made me want to go in and kind of dive deeper and really figure out a little bit more about World War II that I didn't know, that with all
Yeah.
these underlining missions that might have come up though. But like I said, I enjoyed it and I think it was a really good film for sure.
Yeah, and I also think, like, again, with World War II and everything that's happened in World War II, there was a lot about the Germans and the US
Mhm.
and so on, and obviously the British here. And this is a group of British folks coming together under, you could go as far as saying under the jurisdiction of Winston Churchill.
Right.
And these folks, they all have very distinct personalities, very distinct characteristics. I mean, this kind of gives you sort of a militant Guardians of the Galaxy feel. Like
Yeah.
every
Definitely.
character has their specific attribute to them. As you mentioned, Alan Richardson, and yeah, Reacher has definitely been his standout project. But I would go as far as even saying recently in Ordinary Angels, this guy's just continued to show just how fantastic and how well range of an actor he is. And
Yeah.
he plays his character Anders, who is a archery specialist, and also very good with the knife. He's jacked, of course, but like he has so much charisma while being one of the most sinister people on their crew. And as I mentioned, Henry Cavill's in it. The list kind of goes on. There's a lot of folks that have very if you know type of backgrounds. And I think they just all come together. This group of about 5 come together as they have to be basically 5 versus 200 of Hitler's troops in order to be able to infiltrate Hitler's troops and stop his Atlantic fleets of U-boats. So it's interesting on a historical note because you kind of want to research more. But if not, you just enjoy the film for what it is because it gave you a lot, and I enjoyed it from in to out because of it. And typical Guy Ritchie stuff. You have the uppity score with that vibe, and it's heavy with the percussions and the drums and the cymbals, and you can appreciate that being like the backdrop to everything that's happening. But then there's other moments where with the sound mixing where they sort of did this noise cancellation aspect where they focus in on particular sound effects like a lighter flickering or just whatever it may be, and it just heightened the moments. You were really tuned in because you wanted to they wanted you to be focused on what was being said or what was being done outside of everything else that was kind of happening around. And I think that was like a really cool technique, and it definitely was engaging. And then, like, again, going back to characteristics, like Henry Cavill's character, Gus, he was obsessed with Coates, but he was the leader, but also he was the defiant one, and he was also very snarky. And at the end of the day, all 5 of them had just amazing camaraderie and banter where that's where the comedy lived. The comedy lived between the dialogue where these were definitely like almost brothers to an extent that had a common goal and wanting to get the job done, but also took moments to still play jazz with each other or one up each other or have a little laugh or a little, kick at one another. So, I definitely did appreciate how like all of the different components of this film really came together. And last thing I will say is all the way to the credits where you get some still footage of these people who these characters are inspired by and from. So being able to see the stories behind the people behind these characters and the stories behind them and the connections and a little bit of comedy with that as well too. Just again brought the film full circle to me. So overall, this was a very solid, another solid Guy Ritchie outing. It's an A for me, B plus A-ish for me. Nothing wrong with the film besides if you were looking for something different from him, you're not going to get that. He didn't reinvent the wheel from his style. It's typical Guy Ritchie, and it delivered. But for you, Cam, definitely let me know what else with the film that you want to touch on, and overall, how would you rate it?
Yeah, I would say that I guess some of the characters that had a particular shine or were really kind of pushed to the forefront. Babs Asamamaku,
Mm-hmm.
who played Heron, right,
Mm-hmm.
in this film.
Yeah.
He was really a standout. I think the last film I got to see him in was the original Dune, where he didn't really last very long, right? But this is his film where he's, in there beginning to end, killing it.
Yeah.
And I was super excited to see him, as well as Elsa Gonzalez, who played Marjorie Stewart. And you'll see a little bit of history of, the relationship between Marjorie and the one of the other crew members going later on when you see it in the film. But overall, I think this was, like you said, a typical Guy Ritchie film, and I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy it. Going in from the beginning, I didn't think it was going to be that good, but it really surprised me at the end of the day. And I would definitely give it I give it a B+ for sure. It was a good film.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't know, I mean, Guy Ritchie films is never short on the blood, the brutality. So, like, you're definitely going to be in store for some very unique killing. Nothing over the top, but definitely ones that will have you gasping because they did it. Yeah, they did that. They went there with it. And again, even if you feel like it wants to get too deep or too heavy with that, it's right back with another laugh. So, one other thing I do want to say, again, that the highlights of this film for me was definitely like those noise cancellation moments where they really isolate on the sound effects. I also did love some of the visuals and some of the shots in the film. There was a particular moment of the film where Marjorie had a singing performance, and how they kind of gave her almost like a silhouette shot was so cool that it really heightened that small moment of the film, but like it felt much bigger than what it was. And then there was another moment where we had a larger ship and a smaller vessel on the water, and a submarine was approaching, and the two of them had to separate. And when the larger vessel kind of faded into the back of the shot, it was like very cloudy, but like a sun like gleaming through. Like how that was shot was so beautiful. I was definitely like, wow, that's an amazing shot there. So, yeah, I there was definitely some moments of this film I was definitely very, very impressed with. But nonetheless, I still think very much a B+ to an A in this film. But if Cam has nothing else to say, then I'll wrap it up by saying the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare comes to theaters April 19th. Folks, get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts about this one once you check it out. And as always, stay tuned for more movie reviews right here at Big O Belt Media very soon. Thank you for watching, folks.